My parents dumped my 8-year-old daughter in foster care without telling me, then flew to Hawaii with my sister's kids like nothing happened. I came home from work to an empty house and a note that said, "We couldn't handle her." Hours later I get a photo. My dad on the beach, drinking cocktails with my niece and nephew, smiling like he hadn't just abandoned my child. That's the moment I knew they never saw her as family. And I was done protecting people who never protected her. I'm Emily, I'm 32 and I work as an ER nurse in Phoenix, Arizona. I've seen some horrible things. Scars, overdoses, people flatlining in front of me. But nothing, absolutely nothing prepared me for the kind of betrayal I'd face in my own family. My daughter Sophie is my entire world. She's 8, smart, stubborn, sweet, with wild auburn curls and this giggle that could melt concrete. Our life isn't fancy, but it's ours. Sunday pancakes, bedtime stories, and a little ritual where we each say one brave thing we did that day. Since her dad Michael walked out on us 3 years ago cheating, lying and disappearing behind broken promises, Sophie and I have been a team. I've done my best to give her everything I can. My parents, Robert and Susan, stepped in a lot when she was younger. At first, I was grateful. They helped with daycare, picked her up when my shifts ran late, came to birthday parties. But it didn't take long to realize their love came with fine print. They liked to be in control. They liked to remind me, quietly but constantly, that I couldn't have done this without them. On the outside, they look perfect. My dad's a retired accountant who still wears polos tucked into jeans. My mom was a school principal for 20 years. They go to church, host barbecues, and act like they've never raised their voices in their lives. But behind closed doors, the favoritism was impossible to miss. My younger sister Jessica has always been the favorite, always. She was the homecoming queen, the one who got a car at 16, the one who never had to do chores. Now she's married to a corporate lawyer named David, has 2 kids, Ethan and Olivia, and works part-time as an interior designer, which mostly looks like scrolling Pinterest and spending someone else's money. They're not bad kids, but they get everything. Birthday parties at Disneyland, iPads, new bikes every year. Meanwhile, Sophie wears hand-me-downs and hears maybe next month more than she should. I told myself it didn't matter, that I could handle it, that their favoritism was annoying but harmless, that as long as Sophie was safe and loved, I'd take the rest. I thought I was being mature. I thought I was keeping the peace. I was wrong. Because one day they crossed a line I could never come back from. A line so deep, it didn't just break my trust. It shattered everything I thought I knew about family. It started last month when the ER got slammed with one of the worst multi-care crashes we'd seen all year. I work at Riverside Memorial as a senior nurse, so when they told me I had to cover 3 straight night shifts, it wasn't a request, it was my responsibility. My usual sitter, Sarah, was out of town visiting her sister in Denver, and I had 0 backup. So I did what any desperate working mom would do. I called my parents. "Can you watch Sophie for 3 nights?" I asked, trying to keep the panic out of my voice. There was this long, weird pause, and then Dad finally said, "We can rearrange some things." Mom added, "Make sure she brings her own stuff. We don't have much for kids her age anymore." That should have been a red flag, but I was so tired and so thankful they said yes that I ignored it. I packed Sophie's overnight bag like I was sending her into Battle Webster. Her stuffed otter went in first, in her starry nightlight, her gluten-free meals labeled and frozen, her allergy meds, and a little note I always write her that ends with, "Be brave, I love you." When I dropped her off, I gave her the biggest hug and told her to be good. She looked up at me, clutching Webster, and whispered, "I'll be super quiet so they don't get mad." That should have broken me right then, but I just kissed her forehead and left, trusting that no matter how flawed my parents were, they'd never hurt her. As I turned to walk away, I heard my mom whisper to my dad, "We'll tell her about Hawaii later." I froze for a second. Hawaii? But I brushed it off. I had patience to save, lives to hold together. I figured maybe they meant something harmless. Maybe they were planning a trip for later. Or maybe I heard wrong. Big mistake. Fast forward 3 days. I'm in the hospital locker room at the end of my 3rd shift. Sore, running on caffeine and willpower, when my phone buzzes. It's Rachel, the secretary from Lakeside Elementary. "Hey, just calling to check Sophie wasn't in school today and we didn't get an absence call." My blood ran cold. "She's with her grandparents," I said quickly. "They should have dropped her off." Rachel paused. "There's no sign of her. She didn't get off the bus and no one picked her up." I hung up and raced out of the hospital, half in my scrubs, dialing my parents over and over while speeding across town. No answer. No texts. When I got to their house, both cars were gone, lights off, mail piling at the door. I let myself in with the spare key and found a single piece of paper on the kitchen counter. My mom's handwriting, neat and calm like she was leaving a grocery list. "Emily, sorry sweetie, we couldn't take care of her. We've arranged temporary placement. Contact Child Protective Services. Love, Mom and Dad." That was it. No number, no location. No explanation, Just a note that they handed my child over to strangers like she was someone else's problem. I stood there shaking, rereading those words over and over, not believing what I was seeing. Then my phone lit up with a notification from Instagram. Jessica had posted a new photo, and there they were. My parents, Jessica, her husband David, and their 2 kids, all on a beach in Hawaii. Matching shirts, big sunglasses, my dad holding a drink, my mom laughing, with Olivia in her lap. The caption? Surprise family vacation. Blessed to have grandparents who drop everything for us. Ohana. The post time? Less than 2 hours after they left that note. I stared at it, my hands trembling, my heart pounding. They hadn't just abandoned my daughter. They'd done it so they could fly across the ocean and play happy family with Jessica and her kids. They didn't even call. They didn't warn me. They didn't care. They left Sophia, me baby, with strangers, probably scared out of her mind, because taking her would have made their trip less convenient. And the worst part? They were smiling in that photo like none of it mattered. Like my daughter didn't even exist. That moment broke something in me. I'll never get back. I didn't cry, I didn't scream. I called CPS with my hands shaking, my voice barely steady enough to speak. After being transferred 3 times, a caseworker finally picked up and confirmed what I feared. Sophie had been placed in emergency foster care. Her guardian said they couldn't care for her, she told me. I snapped. They are her grandparents, not her guardians. I'm her mom, I have full custody. They were just babysitting while I worked 3 night shifts. It took nearly 4 hours, ID checks, verifying documents, explaining my work schedule, practically begging for someone to give me more details. A social worker named Lauren offered to drive me to the foster home, a cozy yellow-trimmed house that belonged to the Thompsons. Mrs. Thompson, a warm, gentle woman in her 50s, met me at the door. Sophie's out back. She's been quiet. I walked into the backyard and saw my daughter standing alone in the grass, holding a red ball. When she saw me, she dropped it and ran at me full speed, crashing into my arms, sobbing, "Mommy, I thought you weren't coming back." I held her so tight I thought I'd break her. "Sweetheart, I would never leave you," I whispered, but I was already crying too. Through her tears, she said, "Grandma told me you had a lot of important stuff." She said Mommy sometimes take long breaks. My heart shattered. They didn't just dump her, they lied to her, made her believe I chose not to come back. Mrs. Thompson added softly, "They never told us you'd return in a few days. They said they were her main caregivers and couldn't handle her anymore." Back home, still in disbelief, I dug into Jessica's social media posts. Pictures of dad snorkeling with Ethan, mom building sandcastles with Olivia, smiling at luau dinners. Everything planned out, not some last-minute emergency getaway. One post from Jessica read, "Mom and Dad are spoiling the kids in Hawaii, best grandparents ever." I turned off my phone. I couldn't look anymore. The words, Mrs. Thompson shared, kept haunting me. Sophie asked if she did something wrong, if her grandparents didn't love her because she wasn't like her cousins. That broke something in me deeper than I even realized. I called Amanda, a close friend and family court attorney. She didn't hold back. "That's abandonment, Emily, possibly custodial interference, and absolutely CPS fraud." She walked me through everything. I filed a formal complaint with Detective Harris, a cop I knew from my ER shifts. "This is serious," he said, scribbling notes. "They lied to CPS, crossed state lines, and tried to make it look like you just disappeared. That's premeditated." I gave him Jessica's posts, which showed the trip had been booked 3 months earlier. Neighbors confirmed my parents had packed luggage the night before they left, and told people Sophie was staying with friends. It was a whole setup. I contacted the Hawaiian police with their resort info, helping build a case, all while holding Sophie's hand every night, telling her over and over that she was safe, and none of it was her fault. But the truth is, this favoritism wasn't new. When Ethan got a new Xbox for his birthday, Sophie got a $10.00 craft kit from the clearance bin. When Olivia had a ballet recital, they drove hours to cheer her on. When Sophie had a piano recital, they skipped it for a church potluck. On Christmas, they forgot about Sophie's gluten allergy and served lasagna. When I pointed it out, Mom said, "She'll find something to eat." I'd had the talk with them 2 years agate, told them straight out, "You treat Jessica's kids better than Sophie." Mom dismissed me immediately. "Don't be dramatic. We love all our grandkids. Jessica just makes things easier." Sophie felt it too. She always tried to be extra polite and helpful, quietly trying to earn their love. Meanwhile, Jessica lived the picture-perfect life they dreamed of: college, marriage, wealth. I was the mistake in their eyes, the one who got pregnant in nursing school, divorced young, working long hours to stay afloat. But Sophie was never a mistake. She's the best thing that's ever happened to me. Her dad, Michael, was barely in the picture. His visits were rare, his support late, and when I caught him cheating, he didn't even try to fight for our family. And now, my own parents had taken that same lack of care and turned it into something even more cruel: abandoning Sophie like she didn't matter, so they could be the perfect grandparents to Jessica's kids on a beach thousands of miles away. I got Sophie into therapy with Dr. Evans, a kind, no-nonsense child psychologist. Twice a week we'd drive over, and she'd talk or draw. One day Dr. Evans sat me down and said she told me her grandparents said you might not come back because you were too busy. Kids don't make that up. Sophie drew pictures of herself standing alone in a dark house. Shadows all around. At work, I started falling apart. A kid Sophie's age came into the ER with a broken arm, and I locked myself in the supply closet just to cry. My friend Lisa came over after her shifts, brought dinner, sat with me when I couldn't sleep. You don't have to be strong all the time, she said. My boss, Michelle, gave me reduced shifts. Take the time. Family comes first, she said. Amanda helped me gather every bit of evidence. Jessica's posts, the CPS note, the social worker's statement, Sophie's own words. Her school counselor, Mr. Carter, warned me gently, kids like Sophie internalize this kind of thing. They think it's their fault. Just keep reminding her it's not. I did. Every night. Every morning. But the nightmares told me it still wasn't enough. Then Jessica started texting me, furious. You're ruining our vacation. Police showed up at the hotel. Mom and Dad are devastated. You're being dramatic. I stayed calm and replied, they left Sophie with strangers, Jessica. They lied to CPS. They told her I might not come back. Jessica fired back, she's exaggerating. I responded, the foster mom and the social worker confirmed it. She snapped, you traumatized my kids. I replied, I just wanted my daughter safe. Then something I didn't expect happened. My Aunt Diane called me out of nowhere. Your mom did this to me growing up, she said. Always chose your uncle over me. I know what this feels like. I support you. It's time someone stopped her. And just like that, I realized I wasn't alone anymore. The next morning, my phone buzzed just after sunrise. Detective Carter from the Maui Police Department. We've located Robert and Susan Walker at the Oceanside Resort, he said. We're going in now. My heart was racing. I pictured it in my head, the confrontation, the look on their faces, and then he told me exactly what happened. It was 7 a.m. when 3 officers knocked on the door of their luxury suite. My parents, still in white hotel bathrobes, opened the door looking sleepy and confused. We're here about your granddaughter, Sophie Walker, and child abandonment allegations, Carter said. My dad, in typical fashion, tried to shut the door like this was some kind of misunderstanding. This is a mistake, he said flatly, but the officers stopped him and showed the CPS complaint. You left a child with social services under false pretenses, one officer explained. My mom stammered, we made arrangements, Emily's just overreacting. And that's when Jessica stormed in from the adjoining room, eyes wide. Wait, what? You told me Emily agreed to this, she snapped. My dad, without missing a beat, said, Sophie has special needs. She's difficult. We couldn't handle her. Later, I told Detective Carter, she's a normal kid. She has an inhaler, not a behavior disorder. My mom started crying, saying they were going to come back for her. But the CPS documents they signed claimed I was unavailable for an indefinite period, which was a lie. Meanwhile, hotel guests watched the whole thing unfold. One even posted a video to TikTok titled, Grandparents Busted for Ditching Their Grandkid for Hawaii Drama at Breakfast. That one went viral. The hotel manager, Linda, moved them into a private room for questioning to stop the scene. An older couple sitting nearby told Detective Carter, we'd never do something like that to our grandchild. My parents weren't arrested but were clearly shaken. They're flying back to Connecticut tomorrow, Carter told me, and not in first class this time. When I got home, I sat Sophie down at the kitchen table. The police talked to Grandma and Grandpa, I said gently. They're coming home early. She looked up at me, eyes wide. Are they in jail? I shook my head. Not now, but they're being held responsible, she hesitated, then whispered. Ethan said you were jealous of their trip. That stung. This isn't about Hawaii, I told her. This is about protecting you. She didn't say anything, just hugged Webster, her stuffed daughter, and nodded. Jessica's voicemails exploded after that, furious, relentless. You ruined our vacation. Ethan and Olivia are crying. You humiliated Mom and Dad over nothing. I didn't answer. This was never about her. 3 days later, I walked into family court, facing my parents for the first time since it all happened. They were dressed in formal clothes like it would impress the judge, but all I saw were the people who left my child behind like luggage. Judge Thompson read the charges: child abandonment, neglect, and knowingly filing false reports. Their lawyer, of course, called it a regrettable misunderstanding, claiming they'd arranged alternate care. But the judge wasn't buying it. Abandoning a child while flying to Hawaii is not a misunderstanding. It is a conscious decision, she said, her tone sharp. My dad mumbled something about being overwhelmed. The judge cut him off. You booked this trip 3 months ago. That's not overwhelmed. That's premeditated." As she spoke, all I could hear in my head was what Sophie had said to Dr. Evans in therapy. They said Mom might not want me anymore. That single sentence is what kept me going. I wasn't doing this for revenge. I was doing it for justice. But it didn't stop there. Somehow, Michael, Sophie's absentee father, heard about the case once it hit the local news. "I want custody," he said out of nowhere. "I can give her stability, not this drama." I stared at him, stunned. "Where were you when she was in foster care?" I asked. "You're 4 months behind on child support. You don't call. You don't show up." He got defensive, saying, "Don't turn her against her grandparents." I looked him straight in the eye. "I'm teaching her that respect is earned, even from family." And that was the last time he spoke to me about custody. The case started making headlines. Hawaii grandparent abandonment became the headline in our local paper, but I ignored the media. My focus was on Sophie. In therapy, she started opening up again. "They said I was too much work," she told Dr. Evans. "They said Mom needed a break from me." Dr. Evans helped her process it through art scribbles, drawings, emotion on paper. At school, her teacher, Ms. Harper, created a little project called Strength Cards, where each kid wrote something nice about a classmate. Sophie's card stack read things like, "Sophie makes me laugh. Sophie shares her snacks. Sophie's the bravest person I know." I cried reading them, because despite everything they did to her, she was still full of love. My parents took a plea deal: 6 months probation, family counseling, community service, and a written admission of guilt. Legally, the consequences were light. Emotionally, they were devastating. Their neighbors stopped waving, church friends turned cold. The image they'd worked so hard to maintain cracked under public judgment. But inside the therapy room with Dr. Bennett, the real unraveling began. My mom clung to her old script. "I did everything right, one mistake doesn't define me." But Dr. Bennett didn't let that slide. "Abandoning a child isn't one mistake. It's a choice with lasting damage." My dad broke first, 6 months into sessions. "We saw Sophie as Emily's baggage, her broken marriage, her hard life, but we forgot she's a person. She's our granddaughter." That confession hit hard, and maybe it was the start of something. My mom, though, was still more concerned with saving face than truly owning up. "I didn't mean for her to feel unloved," she'd say, like intention erased the harm. Sophie, though, didn't need them to be perfect. She needed them to be real. She spoke in court, standing on her own 2 feet with a bravery I'll never forget. "You made me feel like I wasn't enough. Not because of what I did, but because you didn't see me. I forgive you, but it still hurt. A lot." That silence in the room said everything. No lecture could have done what Sophie's words did. Jessica reached out after 6 months, sitting across from me at a quiet cafe. "I didn't want to believe they'd actually do this," she admitted, tears in her eyes. "I ignored how they treated Sophie. I wanted to believe it wasn't that bad. I didn't sugarcoat it." "Your silence let it happen." She nodded slowly. "Ethan asked why we didn't notice." I had no answer. Trust wouldn't be rebuilt in one coffee, but it was a start. The surprise came from someone else. Michael's mother, Margaret. Sophie's grandmother on her dad's side had been quiet for years, distant like Michael. But after the news broke, she stepped in, gently. "Family doesn't mean accepting abuse," she said, dropping off a bag of books and a homemade blanket. She didn't try to take over. She just showed up, again and again. Lisa did too, bringing lasagna and late-night talks when I couldn't sleep. My boss, Michelle, promoted me to lead ER training, saying, "You didn't just survive, you handled chaos with grace." That new role gave me something even better than a titleist: stability. Sophie and I needed that. Her 9th birthday was quiet but beautiful. No fancy grandparents, no awkward tension, just Lisa, Chloe, the Thompsons, Margaret, and Sophie's school friends. We had a space-themed party with glowing stars, cookies shaped like rockets, and a big cake that said, "Shine bright." I looked at her blowing out candles and whispered, "Make a wish, Space Explorer." She beamed. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. Healing didn't happen overnight. Sophie had nightmares, clung to me after school, asked if I'd come back every time I left for a shift. But she got stronger. She started dancing again, laughing at bedtime jokes, asking about planets and constellations. At school, her teacher, Ms. Harper, had the kids make strength cards for Sophie and said, "You make everyone feel safe." At therapy, she drew herself in bright colors again. That meant more than any court ruling ever could. Contact with my parents is limited now, strictly supervised and entirely on Sophie's terms. She met with them once. She read a letter she wrote herself. "You made me feel like I didn't matter. That's not okay." My dad stayed quiet, my mom cried, but her apology was still wrapped in guilt and self-pity, not accountability. And that's okay. Because Sophie's healing didn't need their approval. It needed truth. It needed space. And it needed me to stop pretending everything was fine. I'm proud to say I finally did. Sophie told me the other night, "I'm not scared when you go to work anymore, Mommy. I know you'll come back." That was everything. That was the moment I knew we'd made it through. This whole nightmare taught me that family isn't who shares your last name, it's who shows up when things fall apart. It's Lisa making pancakes at midnight, it's Margaret bringing books. It's the Thompsons opening their home to a scared little girl. That's what love looks like. Real love doesn't abandon, it stays, even when it's hard. So if you've ever had to fight to protect someone you love, if you've ever had to stand alone and say, "This isn't okay," know that your voice matters. Drop your own story in the comments. Hit that like button if this story moved you, and don't forget to subscribe for more true stories about healing, hope, and standing up for what's right. Because sometimes, the family we build is stronger than the one we're born into. If this story hit you in the gut the way it did me, if you've ever felt left behind by the very people who were supposed to protect you, don't keep it to yourself. Drop your story in the comments, we read every single one, and trust me, your voice might be exactly what someone else out there needs to hear tonight. And if you're still rebuilding, like Sophie and I were, know this: healing doesn't happen in silence, it happens in community. So stick around, hit that like button if this video spoke to you, and subscribe if you want more real, raw stories like this, stories about standing up, moving forward, and finding the kind of love that actually shows up when it matters. Because at the end of the day, blood might make you related, but it's respect that makes you family. Thanks for being here, thanks for listening, and remember, the lesson in all of this, sometimes the people who hurt you will never admit they were wrong, but your strength, your truth, and your boundaries, that's what breaks the cycle. Keep holding the line, you're not alone.